N Lefty. We're here every Tuesday from 6 to 7 p.m., barring unseen illnesses. Lefty is out today. He's caught a nasty virus of some kind and has lost his voice, which, for half of my audience is good news, and for the other half is bad news. Anyway, we wish Lefty will get well quick here very soon. We had a rip-roaring discussion last week, and we had the show planned out, and it's unfortunate that he was ill. However, we did have a guest host lined up, and we were really excited to have Mike Sporer on. Just a few minutes ago, he called me and he said, listen, I can't make it. I have something going on with my daughter. And, between hosting your show, which is usually the highlight of my week, and being with my daughter, I got to go be with my daughter. So we wish Mike well. And then the third thing that has plagued our show today, our ever humble and reliable Frank has been replaced for the show by the ever more humble and yet to be seen reliable Frank Jr. And Frank, regular, looks like a pretty decent guy. Frank Jr. over here looks like he's a bass player for, or the drummer for Cirrus Minor. So, you know who they are, yes. Frank Jr.? Yes, you do?
I do.
They're a great band.
Yes.
Oh, yeah. And what I need to do is bring in the CD they gave me. They told me I could use their music as some of our intro stuff. What do you think of that?
Yeah, that'd be really good.
I think that'd be really good. Anyway, a lot of things have gone on this week and last week, and things keep getting worse and worse for the President of the United States. First, we'll talk about the NSA scandal. It's widening. It continues to widen. More countries are getting added to the list of people they spied on. More people here in America is having a larger list of, or being added to the list of people that have been spied on. It's getting so bad that even Mick Jagger, a committed liberal from England, has started taking shots at our president over this NSA scandal. Of course, the jokes are coming, hard and fast, but it really is rather serious. And there's testimony by an admiral, and I forget the admiral's name. And of course, it always happens right when you go on the air. You have all your stuff, and suddenly you forget the guy's name. Anyway, he got in there and he said that they don't have the authority to listen in on people's conversations without a warrant. And when asked directly, have they been listening in, he replied, no. Well, I'm glad to hear that. But the problem is, like Blake pointed out last week, there is something called the FISA, which is this kangaroo court, basically. That's how I've termed it. I don't know if it's truly a kangaroo court, but that's how I term it, where they just basically rubber stamp the warrants. And it's something set up, of course, by George Bush in response to the liberals being mad about this. Now, one of the things I haven't heard from my conservative compatriots about this NSA scandal and spying on Americans is the outrage that the left has over President Obama doing exactly what they thought George Bush was going to do. Now, the problem is conservatives look outside the country for bad things, and liberals look on the inside for bad things. And as we all know, liberalism at some point, liberalism leads to socialism. Socialism leads to communism, and communism leads to a police state. That's a typical scenario. It has played out. It doesn't always happen that way, but that's how it plays out. The bottom line is the reason the liberals are so bent out of shape about this isn't aside from the fact that it obviously spying on U.S. citizens is absolutely intolerable. But they understand that this progression can lead to a police state, from liberalism, socialism, communism to a police state. They are very careful to make sure that it doesn't go too far, that it doesn't get out of hand. And this is exactly what's happened with the NSA. When you have people, Americans, spying on Americans, that's awful. Now, having said that, I'm not trying to scare anybody, because the bottom line is ever since we've had the telephone and the ability to record anything, the government has recorded our conversations, and they have certain words in there that they screen for. This is back in the day when we had rotary telephones. I don't know. I mean, this will attract the older audience. They'll know what I'm talking about here. And they would record this and they would review it. Well, they're basically doing the same thing, except now it's, Twitter, and it's Facebook, and it's, what's the other one? Pinterest, Reddit. They're monitoring all this stuff. There's so much information going on out there. It's really going to be difficult for them to process it. But they're now doing text, and all that's public record. I mean, it's like standing on a street corner with a bullhorn, so a big deal. They're monitoring that. Anybody can. I don't have a problem with that. But when they start tapping into your phones, when they start threatening the people that you've chosen to do business with privately, that's when it becomes a problem. That's when it becomes a police state. Liberals are very worried about this. On the other hand, the conservatives, I haven't heard a lot. I've actually heard John Boehner defend Obama a little bit with this. I've heard other conservatives say, well, it's kept us safe. I'm not quite sure if they're trying to defend Bush policies, which honestly, from a conservative viewpoint, and Lefty and I have talked about this all the time. I hate it when I get in a position where I have to defend George Bush's policies, because there are some policies out there that frankly aren't good. The problem is I don't know if they're defending George Bush's policies, if they're the ones that voted for it, based the foundation of the NSA wiretaps, and they're nervous and having to defend that, or if they really don't see the danger in this. And if the third one, these people have to go. Our conservative leadership has to stand up and say, this is enough spying from our government onto us, and it has to stop. But I don't hear that out there. I don't hear anybody out there saying that at all. Now, if you have a different opinion, please give me a call. If you have something to add to that opinion or any information I may have missed, because, during the day I actually do work, then please call and we'll discuss it over the air. We are going to take a quick break. We'll be back right after break. I want to thank everybody for tuning in. Please stay tuned and watch your sponsors. There's what's allow us to keep the lights on and the internet going here. We'll be back right after the break. You're listening to Doc and Lefty on webcast1live.com every Tuesday from 6 to 7 p.m.
Petrosian Associates, how can I help you?
Petrosh and Associates will provide you with a friendly, caring, and confidential place to find help for mental health concerns. We are ready for your call. Our doctor, Dr. J. Patrick Petrosh, provides a full range of psychiatric services for children, adolescents, and adults in a forthright and informative manner while maintaining a casual, comfortable, and relaxed atmosphere.
Drug and alcohol addiction slowly steals a person's identity, tearing away pieces of their life little by little until one day it seems like the hope of a happy future is gone and there's no chance of getting it back. Here at St. Gregory Retreat Centers, we can assure you that there is hope. Our unique approach to recovery begins with the understanding that the dysfunction and damage caused by addiction can be overcome, not just dealt with. Don't let another day go by. Call St. Gregory today.
From the RE/MAX Real Estate Concept Studios, this is Webcast One Live.
This is Doc with Doc and Lefty. You listen to us every Tuesday from 6 to 7 p.m. here on webcast1live.com in our beautiful downtown Des Moines studios. I took off to Colorado this weekend, had a wonderful bike ride with a bunch of friends, helped out a bunch of kids that needed rides to their school, and that was really a wonderful thing to do, and a great way to help out those less fortunate. Before the break, we were talking about the NSA and how they're spying on us. President Obama has gone on several times here in the last week to say, no, we don't spy on Americans. We just spy on the rest of the world. And that doesn't look good. None of that makes us look good. The problem is we have this guy named Snowden, who is apparently some kind of tech person, and had ratted everybody out and said, hey, listen, this is really what they're doing. So he's fleeing from country to country to avoid being prosecuted. And what's interesting about this is they have charged him with treason. The Department of Justice charged him with treason very quickly. I don't recall anybody being charged with treason this quickly at all. Usually, it's a big drawn out process. There's months of investigation, then they issue an arrest warrant, and then it's, 4 or 5 year thing, trial. Well, with this, they've immediately, relatively speaking, within 2 weeks, issued a warrant for his arrest based on treason. Well, that brings up an interesting conundrum. And that is, if what he is saying is true, then it's a First Amendment issue and he hasn't done treason, right? And there's whistleblower statutes and laws out there that would protect him and his right to say, hey, listen, this is what's going on. So you get down to either he's telling the truth or he's not, in which case it's a libel issue and the rest of it, but it's not treason. So the fact that the Department of Justice has issued a warrant for his arrest based and charging him with treason tells you that what he is saying is true. That's my perspective from this. Now, this is when, most of the time I don't miss Lefty because, he's a lefty. You know how it goes. But in this case, I wish he was here to say, well, it's not really that, because what I've looked up now, keep in mind, I'm not a lawyer, but what I've looked up as far as the law goes, treason is a very specific act, very specific. And if he has committed treason, he hasn't sold the information to anybody else. He hasn't sold the information to the Russians. He hasn't sold the information to the Chinese or the Indians or the Muslims or the Israelis. He hasn't done any of that. He has simply made an announcement. This is what our government is doing. And he's made it to a reporter. Now that brings up another thing. The Obama administration is now going after reporters for reporting the news, right? Because now, if you get somebody who has leaked something to you and report it, it's now a crime. They charge you with a crime. The Obama's Department of Justice charges you with a crime. Talk about suppression of the free press. Talk about oppression. Talk about the beginning of the not free police state. That's what you're talking about. So what kills me, the liberals are going nuts about this. They're calling Obama out. The newspapers have turned on Obama like I have never seen this before. Even with Watergate, that I vaguely remember, all right, because that's how old I am. Even with Watergate, you didn't have this level of veracity going after a president. I mean, a lot of this was reluctant journalism. Hey, listen, our president did this. We don't like it. We really don't want to have to bring all this out, and it's shameful. But that was basically the attitude. And then they became celebrities after that. Then the left went, hey, go get them. Well, now the very same people that have been protecting Obama have turned on him because I don't know if they've finally seen it or if he's now elected and, great, we don't have to deal with a Republican for 4 years. I don't know what's going on, but they're really after him. The Hollywood elite has turned on him. The media has turned on him. His donors have turned on him. So we do have a visitor in our office. He's small. You can't see him on camera, but he does manage to buzz right around right in front of me. So I'm sorry if I might wave a little bit. Not waving at you, Mom. So you have all this going on, and but nobody's saying anything. Nobody's saying a word about him, about POTUS, President Obama, charging the journalists who release this information that has been given to them, that apparently has been vetted by these people, by the journalists, but they're being charged with, crimes. That's suppression of the free press. That is one of the steps to a police state. And everybody out there knows it, When you couple that, now Lefty's always given me a bunch of guff about, conspiracy theories. Now I listen to them. I talk, some of them have merit, most of them don't. But in this case, you really can't help but to suspect that has been a systematic dismantling of the free press by Obama. He is a charmed man. Whenever he's been challenged by the press, he's responded terribly, petulantly, if that. He will outright exclude news organizations from his press junkets. And now it's finally culminated in, well, we're spying on the AP. We're going to spy on other ones, on other newspaper organizations and media organizations. And we're now going to start charging people with crimes for reporting the news as they see it. And it's just taking the final step where you finally have a whistleblower going, hey, listen, this is what they're doing. And now he's fleeing from country to country. Now, if you haven't, Snowden released all this information. He's not released any documents and really hasn't released any proof. The Department of Justice's response to this has been to charge him with treason. That tells me right there's at least a kernel of truth. He went to the Chinese. Actually, he went to Hong Kong because they don't have an extradition treaty. The Chinese did what the Chinese do when they're in a tough spot, and that is punt. So they punted him straight over to the Russians. I'm going to tell you what's happening to this guy in Russia because he missed his flight to Cuba. The KGB, or it's not the KGB because they're over, but whatever took over for the KGB is now pumping this guy for every bit of information he has. Now, despite everybody's view that Russia is, a defeated enemy, they may be a defeated enemy, but they are not by any means down and out. They are resurgent. They're going to extend their influence, and they're going to get all the information they can from this guy. With the added bonus, the longer they keep him in Russia, the more they can thumb their nose at the Americans and specifically at President Obama. I can tell you for a fact, traveling over in the Eastern Bloc as much as I do, people hate Obama over there. And it is an unreasonable hatred. It's like the French hatred of George Bush, right? It's just completely unreasonable and completely out of bounds. The reason they don't like him is because they understand that he is a narcissist and is not doing what's best for the country. When you have communists telling you need to review your spending and borrowing habits, this is with the Russians and the Chinese 3 years ago, then you know there's a problem. So the Russians are holding on to him, thumbing their nose at us, not really making us look like, buffoons, but definitely making President Obama look like a buffoon in the Department of Justice. And then right after the break, we'll talk about how the IRS fits into this. Now, I got my Facebook up. You can any of my friends out there, if you want to make a comment, Lefty, if you want to comment on there, you can do that right here on Facebook, or you can text into the show because I have my phone here with me. Right after the break, we'll be talking about the IRS and its scandal and how this all dovetail back into an administration whose goal is not the continuation of our lifestyle, but a shift straight into socialism and that slide right into the police state. We'll be back right after the break. You're listening to Doc and Lefty on webcast1live.com.
Drink, dance, party. Kitty's is the ultimate dance club in Des Moines. A huge dance floor with room to move, 3 bars to keep your drinks full, and kickin' DJs playing all your favorite dance music. At Kitty's, we've always got your birthday party planned with Birthday Fridays. That's right, when your birthday rolls around, there's only one place to go. Gather up your friends and head to Kitty's, where you drink free on the Friday of your birthday week. Find out more about Birthday Fridays at kittiesusa.com. Kitty's, all kinds of people, all kinds of music, all kinds of fun.
Drug and alcohol addiction slowly steals a person's identity, tearing away pieces of their life little by little until one day it seems like the hope of a happy future is gone and there's no chance of getting it back. Here at St. Gregory Retreat Centers, we can assure you that there is hope. Our unique approach to recovery begins with the understanding that the dysfunction and damage caused by addiction can be overcome, not just dealt with. Don't let another day go by. Call St. Gregory today.
From the RE/MAX Real Estate Concept Studios, this is Webcast One Live.
We're back. You're listening to Doc and Lefty on webcast1live.com. We're here every Tuesday from 6 to 7 p.m. on webcast1live.com. Unfortunately, Lefty has been ill and it cannot make it tonight. In fact, Frank Jr. asked a question, well, what exactly is treason? And this is where I wish Lefty was here because he could give you a really good answer with this. From what I understand, it has to be an act that is purposefully and with malicious intent, giving aid to our enemies in a time of war. That's one definition. The other definition is selling. I don't know if this is how I would call it. Basically, selling secrets to our enemies to damage us. That's treason. Now, if you have a different opinion out there, and hopefully, my brother Joe's a lawyer. Hopefully, he's listening. If I'm wrong about that definition, I apologize, but that's basically how I understand it. And again, I'm not a lawyer. So before we've been talking about the NSA leaks, the Snowden guy on the run, and President Obama's basic assault on the journalists. Now, how does all that tie in? Well, you have the IRS. Now everybody's going like, well, hold on. What does the IRS have to do with anything? Keep in mind, every major gangster that's ever been served time in prison, every one, all of them, have one thing in common, the IRS. When you talk about, these gangsters getting arrested and put in jail, the IRS is the one that got them. Now, John Gotti, they weren't able to pin anything on him until Sammy the Bull Gravano rolled over. All right. But the IRS had him up in front for tax evasion, RICO statute offenses, all kinds of stuff. That's the IRS does that. That's all they do. You have a whole organization of rabid CPAs that all they do is shift through paper trying to find bad guys. That's what they're doing. This is the group that's in charge of collecting all the information for Obamacare. They're also in charge of seeing if you're an actual nonprofit or not. And they're in charge of making sure that you keep all of your receipts and make sure you perform all your duties as a citizen as far as taxation and keeping track of your records. What the IRS is a giant data mine. That's what they do. That's what they collect. So when you look at Obamacare and its real intent, which is to collect all the information it can on American citizens, what you have is what place perfect, what bureaucracy in DC would be more perfect to collect information and do data mining than the IRS. Part of this problem is they have been targeting conservative groups. And don't get me wrong, they target lefty groups here and there, but it's more of a review instead of an actual targeting, instead of actual harassment. I mean, there's the blogosphere is filled with stories of conservative Tea Party people being harassed and attacked by the IRS over things that really are, none of their business. One of the things, now this is an interesting point. Part of Obamacare now requires that I ask if you're fully Hispanic or in part Hispanic. Now I can tell you that as far as medicine goes, whether you're an Hispanic or whether you're white, Caucasian, really there's no diseases out there that are more prevalent in whites than are in Hispanics and vice versa. I can see trying to collect information if you're black because there are certain diseases like heart disease, hypertension, sickle cell that occur more frequently in people with a black heritage. I can see that if you're Chinese, you have a tendency to have more strokes if you're of Asian descent. Native Americans have a tendency to have higher rates of diabetes. I can see doing that. Now, I will tell you as a practice in my office, I don't collect that information. It doesn't matter to me what you are. If you're in my office, I'm here to help you. All right. But now I'm required to ask if you're half Hispanic, full Hispanic, what percentage of Hispanic you are. And there's other information out there too that honestly nobody should be privy to. It shouldn't be that way. But I'm required by Obamacare to do this. I send this information into the giant machine, and the IRS is the one that processes it. So how does that tie in with spying? Well, you have the NSA spying on us at home. You have journalists being spied on and charged with crimes. You have Snowden trying to run from one place to another to avoid extradition and the charge of treason. You have countries overseas that are friendly to him because they view us as the big giant monster. You know, that's nothing new. But now it's like, well, holy cow, we even have a socialist president, you know, acting like a commie, right? Because that's what communists do. They spy on their own people. They set up a police state, right? So there's countries out there friendly to them. And now they have all this information going into the IRS that has already shown a propensity to abuse its power. Chuck Grassley even fought for the Fair Tax Code, which means, or the Taxpayers' Bill of Rights. That's what it was. And he campaigned. He had to have campaigned a solid 6 years, 8 years to get this passed. But we have to have laws in place to protect us, the U.S. citizen, from the IRS. This is how this all gets together. All these things have one thing in common. That is spying on Americans, collecting information about Americans so it can be used at a later date. Now, I wish I had the sheet where I have to start asking all these different questions. Some of these and here's the problem. If I don't ask them, I'm at risk for a penalty. They'll penalize me if I don't ask these questions. And then I get another penalty if I don't send them in. That's what's spooky. A lot of docs don't think about it. They go, oh, well, you know, are you Hispanic? They'll think, well, that's weird. I shouldn't do that. But really, why ask if they're half Hispanic? Why ask if they're a quarter, right? You know, why not ask if they're, you know, 1/10, you know, Asian, or, you know, 1/20th Black, or 1/30th Native American? Why not ask those questions? The fact of the matter is they're trying to set up a demographic that's going to be friendly to them. Here's part of the problem, and we'll go over this after this. Here's part of why I'm disappointed in the Republican Party and the conservative leadership. Here is 3 organizations collecting information, data mining this information, obviously spying on us, American citizens, trying to not necessarily dismantle the First Amendment, but trying to restrain it through the use of the courts by charging journalists with crimes. A whistleblower being hounded across the world for saying this is what our government's doing and being charged with treason, no less. We have all these elements going on. The conservative leadership is not saying anything. And now we have what has been referred to, at least on Facebook, as scamnesty. But basically, they come up with a new immigration bill that grants amnesty. Why our party leadership is embracing this bill is beyond me. I am all for immigration reform. We need it. It is an unfair system, completely unfair. After the break, we'll talk about my opinion about what should be done about immigration and how this all ties in together about the new scamnesty bill. You're listening to Doc on Doc and Lefty on webcast1live.com on Webcast One Live.
I'm Brian Leach, owner and general manager of Service Legends. I brought along a couple of the home comfort heroes.
Hi, I'm Tammy Wells.
I am Nick Wondershide.
I'm administrative manager.
I am the senior technician
from Service Legends.
It seems like every good thing, when you feel it to the bone that it's good, there's a lot of hard work put behind it. I don't think that you can fake it and have it turn out good.
You know, if we seem like, okay, that's just weird, it's just a furnace, why would you believe so deeply in a furnace? It's not just that, you know, we want to show the world that you can have good service.
Yeah, I mean, it's got to be, it's your home.
You know, it's built into our daily trainings, it's built into our culture, that we're going to do whatever it takes to have each client say they love us, period.
That's why we spend all the hours in the training that we do. And if we guarantee it's going to be a good experience for you, or else it's free, what type of work do you think we're going to do?
There is a guarantee.
Temperature selection guarantee, fixed right or it's free guarantee, comfort guarantee, best value guarantee. All of these guarantees hold us accountable to ensuring that we exceed your expectations. And if for whatever reason we'd fail and we can't make it right, we guarantee all of those guarantees with a 100% money back guarantee.
I mean, if you don't think that your technician can fix it right, are you going to say that to a client? No.
You don't have to worry about having a technician come to your house.
We drug test, background check all of our team members. We put safe people in your home. Each and every one of our service techs, 400 hours a year in training.
You tell it the minute they walk in the door. They know what they're doing, they've done their homework, and they actually truly care about what you want.
Because at the end of the day, you're the person that makes sure I have a job.
They're going to be listening. They're going to want to know what your challenges are. Then they're going to come and give you options, and you get to choose.
If I'm there to help and I make it easy and painless, I did my job right that day.
Well, when it comes to your comfort, safety, and your family, you don't necessarily go buy the most expensive, but you get the most bang for your buck.
Oh, it's worth it because there's a lot of people that will find a way to get it to work right now and then leave and then come back, charge you again, and the cycle just repeats itself. So when I'm out there looking at the furnace, I want to find why it failed today. How can we change the part today with something that you're not going to have to worry about? Is it worth changing the part today? I mean, you can put a lot of money into a furnace. I can fix parts all day. There's good job security in that for me. But is it the right thing for you?
I get a lot of the phone calls of after the technicians are there. They're just in awe. They're like, wow, you guys are great. I mean, I don't even know what to say. You guys are great. Everything you did was perfect. It was great.
Keep going though. I like this.
Just give us a try. I'm going to take all the risk.
I've got the time to make this right. I've got the support to make it right.
Just check us out.
And if you don't see the value in what we do,
I mean, fixed right or it's free or 100% money back.
enough said.
This is Doc with Doc and Lefty. You're joining us every Tuesday from 6 to 7 p.m. here on webcast1live.com. A couple of things I want to mention. Cirrus Minor has their CD release party coming up June 29th. Isn't that right, Frank Jr.? Yeah, and I forgot what the name of the CD is called, but they're having the party out at Woolies. Apparently, they're going to be performing. Do you know the name of that? No?
I am going to look.
Rats. See, I have it up here on Facebook, and then it moved it. And then I'm like, now we're on the air. I can't say anything. Great band. Love them to death. You know, I've seen them in concert 4 or 5 times just here locally. And every concert, they get more bugs worked out. They do a lot better. Everything's looking really up for this group here locally. And hopefully they'll have same kind of success that other local groups around here like Slipknot have had. Now, I know I get to bashing on the GOP leadership a little bit, but I do want to talk about the GOP here locally. Polk County GOP really has done a very good job of getting out a conservative message without alienating everybody on the planet, which is something that some Republicans have been accused of. They work really hard. They just had a fundraiser, which was a tremendous success. I'm still waiting to hear that apparently they had dinner with the governor and dinner with the lieutenant governor and several other dignitaries up for auction. I haven't heard what the final bid was on that, but that was something very exciting. They have another fundraiser coming up here. Of course, they're going to be out at the Iowa State Fair at the GOP booth. So, that's their next big event. This fall, they're going to have another big dinner with big speakers coming out, and that's going to be exciting. Also, we're going to have the Ames straw poll pretty soon. That's about August fair time. And apparently Donald Trump and Bob Vanderplatz are planning to go to the Iowa straw poll and vet some candidates out there. So that's exciting news that's coming up. But be sure to go to polkgop.gov. And if you feel like it, contribute, but at least find out what they stand for, what they're talking about. Also, our sponsors, Des Moines Anesthesia, are terrific at pain management. And I know with the recent losses of several pain management doctors, if you're looking for a pain management specialist, they have 2 offices, one in Des Moines and one in Fort Dodge. And we would encourage you to get a hold of them and utilize their services. Dr. Iqbal is here in Des Moines, and Dr. Kent Krosky is in Fort Dodge. And, I know them both personally. They both suffer from their own pain conditions, so they understand what it's like when you're suffering with pain. Now, speaking of pain, our segue into the next segment is what is going on with the leadership of the Republican Party when you have John Boehner defending President Obama for things that are indefensible, such as spying on Americans, such as turning the IRS loose and not having them, not having any controls on, who they get to investigate. And this has gone all the way up to the Washington, D.C. office at this point. One of the problems with all this, here's a post by a friend of the show, it's Blake's Facebook friend, Phaedra Gay. And her point is that how embarrassing this has to be for us. There was a point in time where if we're chasing somebody down like this, there's no way the Russians or the Chinese would ever go, hey, we're not going to give them up. We're going to screw with you a little bit. There's a point in time in our history that nobody would have done that. Doesn't matter who they were. They wouldn't have done it. And now they do it routinely. This guy, he's on the run. We're having to beg these people, right? Please come. Bring him over. Would you please give him up? Pretty please. So I get her point. Specifically, she says, how weak do we look as a global superpower, the only one that's remaining, when we can't even hold this guy, and Hong Kong and Russia will say to our faces, sorry, but we aren't helping with this one. That makes us look weak all the way around. And if you want to talk about giving fuel to the Islamist fire, how weak does this look? They're like, we can't even get one guy back. We can't catch one guy. He's our citizen. We had him here. How are they going to catch us? Right? So you have this whole thing going on, and you have the Republican leadership basically shrugging the shoulders, staying out of it. Now, last year when Latham and Boswell were running and the whole Boswell Ed Fallon thing popped up with the lawsuit and all that, Tom Latham told me directly, you know what? Because I asked him for a statement, officially. And he said, well, I really don't have a statement. I'm just, it's not my fight. I'm just running my own campaign. And it was a great quote. Great. Can't use it for much. Isn't going to generate a lot of excitement. After it, I said, well, thanks a lot, Representative Latham. I appreciate your comment. He looked at me and he says, we're off the record. I said, yeah. He goes, when you're looking at somebody trying to commit suicide and he's your enemy, you don't try to talk him out of it. So that may be why the Republicans are staying quiet. But they could at least say, listen, our stance on this is wrong. We needed a special investigator into the IRS. We need a special investigator into the NSA. We need a special investigator into President Obama, what he knew and when he knew, right? We need those. Here's an interesting thing. When you look at George Bush Jr., when you're looking at him and his 8 years, I think there was 12 special prosecutors appointed in that 8-year period of time. Do you know how many special prosecutors? Frank Jr., would you happen to know how many special prosecutors were appointed during Obama's administration so far? 5 years? Know how many?
No idea.
Because it's 0. None have been appointed. Now, that's what's funny is when Ronald Reagan and George Bush were in power, I believe that number was 24 special prosecutors in that 12-year period of time. Now, I may be off by my number, but it was 24. And during Clinton, I think he had 3, one of which was Ken Starr. So you look at the disparity between Democrats appointing special prosecutors for Republican presidents and Republicans appointing special prosecutors to Democratic presidents. I believe there needs to be a special prosecutor, and I believe that Eric Holder needs to step down because recuse himself, preferably step down, because what we're getting is all this march towards an elimination of our freedom. Lefty says this all the time. We were worried about George Bush, but here's President Obama, who won being the anti-Bush vote in part, And he's doing even more stuff that Bush was criticized for. Now, we ran a little long on this segment, and I apologize. We're going to be back right after the break on Doc and Lefty. We're going to go over some local politics and President Obama's carbon emission nightmare coming up. Thanks, everybody, for tuning in. We're here every Tuesday from 6 to 7 p.m. on webcast1live.com.
Bertroche and Associates will provide you with a friendly, caring, and confidential place to find help for mental health concerns. We are ready for your call. We are proud to work with military personnel and their families. Our doctor, Dr. J. Patrick Bertroche, provides a full range of psychiatric services for children, adolescents, and adults in a forthright and informative manner while maintaining a casual, comfortable, and relaxed atmosphere. Our licensed mental health therapists provide individual counseling to children, adolescents, and adults, including couples and marital counseling. Visit our website at bertrocheandassociates.com for more information or call 515-334-9484. Our offices are located at 5525 Meredith Drive in Des Moines, just east of Skate North off Merle Hay Road. Isn't it time to talk to someone? Take care of yourself and your family. Contact Bertroche and Associates.
Welcome back to Doc and Lefty on webcast1live.com. We're here every Tuesday from 6 to 7 p.m. If anybody out there is curious, those are my dogs running down the hallway. One's a therapy dog. His name's Darwin. The other two are just tag-alongs. They're very helpful in my office. The little brown one's, his name is Elmer, and he's a little character. You know, he's a little bit odd. And then Sybil, she's so kind and nice, and she's a big brute of a dog that's just got a heart of gold. And I will tell you, though, if she barks, you will wake up. And then Darwin, of course, he's kind of like Dennis the Menace, you know, always running around, always in trouble, always doing something. And then when you catch him, he looks at you like, what? What did I do? I didn't do anything. So anyway, those were my dogs. Today, President Obama announced that he was going to go on a carbon initiative. And instead of going through Congress and trying to have them legislate something, which I freely admit at this point, he's a lame duck president. He's not going to get really anything done, but he's going to end run Congress and say, well, geez, EPA, you get to set these new standards. Well, there's a lot of, I don't know if he did this just to keep his base happy or what he did it for, but the EPA mandate clearly states that has to work with the states. And if the states don't agree, it doesn't have the power. Now, everybody who's listened to the show says, I have said over and over, the EPA needs to go. It was supposed to be something that reduces our dependency on oil and make our air cleaner. It really hasn't done either one. It hasn't reduced our oil consumption. It hasn't really made our air cleaner. Hasn't really done anything for us. Private sector initiative is what has reduced our carbon emissions. Now, the liberals like to say, well, Clean Air Act really worked well here, there, and everywhere else. All the Clean Air Act did was shift the pollution from one area to another. So now it's more spread out, even though it's less so. All right. Now, Iowa never had a problem with clean air. I mean, there's not enough people here to bother with clean air. You could put every power plant, every coal plant in America right smack dab of downtown Des Moines, and we're really not ever going to have the smog that LA had. And there's several reasons, all of them environmental and not really any of them to do with the coal. Now, obviously, there was blowback from the coal industry and states with coal and depend on coal and everything else. Here's what the problem is. You could eliminate coal here today in the U.S. and just, let's say, run on nuclear. If we instantly could replace everything with either nuclear or solar or, you know, I mean, we went out to Colorado. I mean, there was a wind farm about every 30 feet when we're going through Iowa. So we could do all that. Let's say we did it magically. Tomorrow it's all gone. Here's what the issue is. We ship most of our coal overseas. Most of our coal goes to India and China. A lot of our coal goes down to South America. That's where our coal goes. We don't burn most of our coal here. So eliminating coal from the U.S., all that does is drive up our energy costs. It doesn't do anything for the environment because whether you burn the coal here or you burn the coal in China, we're still all part of this global warming thing, if you want to call it that. We're all part of the same world, and it's a bubble. I mean, if you get on NASA, they'll show you a picture of the Earth. It's a big bubble like this, and about a finger's worth, about that wide, all the way around this bubble, this big, is the environment. That's where we live. So it's not like burning it over there is going to be any better than burning it here. Second thing is, when you start attacking parts of our industry that produce jobs, which Obama has done repeatedly throughout his presidency, you rocked the markets. Markets weren't doing very well at the end of last week. They're definitely not doing well this week. When you start rocking sectors of the economy, your economy can't recover. What we all know is if you're poor, you can't afford clean burning coal. You can't afford wind power. You can't afford solar power. When you're poor, you have to make do with what you have. So if you make America poor, not prosperous, and not allow us to recover and attack certain segments of our economy over and over, what you have is an inability then to develop clean coal, an inability to develop wind power and solar power. Now, I'm contrary to most Republicans, I firmly believe that if the government got out of the way of the green energy, that green energy would take off. There's a segment of the population that doesn't want to be on the grid. They don't want to have to pay Mid-American Energy. They don't want to have to pay, Colorado Power and Light. They'd rather just generate their own and be happy with it. These are the people that would be the pioneers. The other problem with restricting coal is oil, I think. Now, I might be remembering this incorrectly, but oil has one of the highest yields of energy that we can have. Coal also has one of the highest yields. The problem is it's just dirty, blows out soot and everything else. But our coal plants today are 120 times cleaner than they were 20 years ago. That's a lot of progress. That wasn't from pressure from the EPA. That was pressure from people living near the coal, right? The people living near the power plants. Hey, listen, we don't want this. And, it also is good PR. These power companies have to compete with other power companies to deliver their power to you. And they will do anything to get your vote, right? Or to get your money, basically. But your vote, you know what I'm saying. So when you have President Obama attacking certain segments of the population, things are going to go bad. And things are going bad now. And I don't know why he's choosing to go this way when he could easily build a Democratic coalition in the U.S. Senate and say, hey, listen, let's start working on, trying to eliminate coal and replace it with something else. But he doesn't. He just says, well, we're going to get rid of coal. We're going to attack it because it's bad and awful. It's not bad and awful. It's what allows us to have things cheap in the United States. We're going to be back right after break. The Supreme Court issued what I think is a pretty amazing judgment on the voter ID law. And they struck down a major component of it, which I believe was the second or the fourth part of this law, which pretty much was a linchpin that held it together. We'll be back right after the break. You're listening to Doc and Lefty on webcast1live.com. We'll be back right after the break.
From the RE/MAX Real Estate Concept Studios, this is Webcast One Live.
Whether you're 10, 25, 50, 80 years old and beyond, everyone needs to live within their means. I'm Tom Coates with Consumer Credit of America. For almost a quarter of a century, we've helped people of all ages learn to manage their personal finances to benefit them far into the future. When problems arise, we've got the experience you need to make those debt problems go away. Got financial problems? Call Consumer Credit of America.
If Tom Coates from Consumer Credit of America was your personal webmaster, Tom would filter out all bad debt emails. If Tom was your mailman, you'd never get any debt reduction junk mail. If Tom Coates was a lineman, he'd block any phone calls offering to reduce your credit card debt.
Hi, I'm Tom Coates with Consumer Credit of America, and we're still your best choice for credit counseling. We're local, we're accountable, and we can do more. You make the call when the time's right for you.
When it comes to competition, there really is none for Consumer Credit of America.
This is Doc with Doc and Lefty. We're here every Tuesday from 6 to 7 p.m. See, I tell you, I miss Lefty sometimes. You know, I couldn't even remember what day we're here, Frank Jr. What do you think?
It sounds like it's been a long week already.
It sounds like it's only Tuesday. Oh, my God. Now, there's a conservative breakfast club that goes on every other Wednesday out at, oh, my goodness, I forgot. The one by Living History Farm. What one is that, Frank Jr.?
Machine Shed?
Machine Shed. There you go. And it starts about 7:15 every morning, or every other Wednesday morning. There you go. I got that out. And tomorrow they're going to have Jake Highfill, and he's a newly elected representative from Johnston. So that's going to be exciting to go out there if you ever want to meet him. He'll be there speaking tomorrow. Now, what's very interesting is in this, the Supreme Court ruling today on the Voter Rights Act is they have basically said you can't legislate from the bench. And that's what we're going to do today is legislate from the bench. Justice Ginsburg, she didn't say it's legislating from the bench, but that was the gist of her complaint about this voters' rights being struck down, because she said, well, we're going to set back voters' rights 50 years. I don't think that's going to happen. There are places that are going to, do whatever they can to get their people elected, like in Ohio, where, they had obvious voter fraud by the Democrats, or that one lady who had voted because, she had several dead relatives and she went and voted for them using their names. And she was a Democrat. So things like that are going to happen. The problem really boils down to we need an ID for everything. All right. Why don't we need an ID for voting? You need an ID to drive. And I understand it's a privilege and not a right, but you need an ID for that. You need an ID to get into the United States and out of the United States. If you're a U.S. citizen, you have to be able to provide an ID for that. You have to be able to provide an ID if you go to a bank. In fact, now you have to give a thumb. You have to put your thumb on it, right? Well, how come they can do all that, but we can't require them to have an ID to vote, to make sure at least eligible to vote. Nobody asks for an ID. I mean, everybody asks for an ID if you go to a nightclub. You should be able to go, and you have a right to free association. But you need an ID to get into a nightclub, because if you don't, you can get in trouble. So that's the part that was struck down. I think it was the fourth part, and I'm double checking right here. The Texas law. So the Texans, being Texans, immediately passed their voter ID law. Part of the problem with the decision is the same thing with the decision in Iowa that allowed gay marriage, and that is legislating from the bench. And whether you legislate from the bench from the left or from the right, it's still legislating from the bench. And that's part of the problem with this. You can't pick and choose. Either they're going to legislate from the bench or you're not going to. And whether it's something that you want or something you don't want, it's still not something you should be able to do. Now, I'm all for voter ID. I'm all for it. I'm all for being able to prove you're an American citizen and you're supposed to be here. Every other country in the developed world has laws out there that says you must produce a valid passport and a visa or your citizenship if you're pulled over for anything. The Ukrainians have it. The Russians have it. The Germans have it. The Brits have it. You have to be able to prove you're there and there legally. And you have to carry that with you. Now, I don't know about Canada, that's for sure. But here in the U.S., we should have something very similar. I mean, the liberals are always pointing towards Europe and what they have. Well, when we have that, the Europeans have it. Let's have it here. Ginsburg said something that I believe 100%. This is something that should be legislated from Congress. The problem is Congress has abdicated a lot of its responsibility. They're now much more interested in remaining in power than they are actually solving anything. There's an acquaintance of mine, and I won't name him because he hasn't given me permission to name him, but he's a Facebook friend of mine. He was at the old studio. And he told me one day, he said, I asked him, I said, are you a Republican or Democrat? And he says, I'm not either. And I said, well, you're kind of liberal. And he said, well, I'm kind of liberal and kind of conservative. I said, well, you must be a libertarian. No, I'm not a libertarian either. I just think both parties are the same thing, right? And if you've read Animal Farm, you know that at the end, Napoleon, the leader of the revolution, is inside playing cards with the other humans that kept them all down. I think that's what's going on. Both parties are responsible for this problem. Congress, the House of Congress, has abdicated its responsibility to produce a budget. They're abdicating their responsibility to look at the Voters' Rights Act and say, well, hold on, we need to change this now. Let's have some common courage and figure out what we can do in the middle. You have the Senate that simply will rubber stamp whatever President Obama wants. And I don't think that's right. They're drafting this amnesty bill much in the same way they drafted the Obamacare. And that is, nobody's read it, but they're going to have to pass it to find out what's in it. There's all kinds of bad things in this amnesty bill, including a bunch of pork, just like Obamacare, just like the stimulus package, filled with pork. And these people don't have the guts to go, well, we need to cut this out, because they want to be reelected. They want to go out there. They want to keep playing cards with the humans inside the house. They all want to be their own Napoleon. And I think it's time to start voting out the leadership of both parties. That's where I'm coming from. I have been a critic of John Boehner for quite a while now. I don't think I'm alone in this criticism. You have to be able to lead. You have to be able to put together your coalition. For crying out loud, you have an unbeatable majority in Congress, in the House, in the House. You're at close to parity in the Senate, yet you can't get anything done. The House should just go ahead and put it up to vote and make the senators go, well, this is my voting record. This is what I'm doing. This is what I believe in. But they don't even have the courage to do that. They're trying to maintain the status quo. So I get back to, what are you guys doing? Get out there and get something done. Which brings me back to a local issue. You can say what you want about Governor Branstad, but he got stuff done. And you can say what you want about Jack Hatch. He worked with the governor to get things done. You can say what you want about Dennis Guth, Senator Dennis Guth, or Tom Shaw, Brad Zahn, or any of the people that work in the government here, but they got stuff done. And really, I look at the people out in Washington, D.C. and go, hold on. Our guys got something done. Now, I don't like some of the things they did, but I can tell you Lefty doesn't like some of the things they did either. But they got something done. They got something accomplished. They're moving the state forward. They're giving people benefit that will benefit everybody. A property tax break for everybody. Me, Lefty, Frank, you own a house? Frank Jr.? Yeah. Frank Jr. got a break. Great. That's going to help everybody. It's going to help us all. We all move forward. Now, the governor's health care plan, I talked about it last week. I could talk about how bad that is for the rest of the show. But instead, we're going to close off. I thank everybody for tuning in tonight. I hope you will write, friend me on Facebook, send me an email, do whatever it is that in order to communicate, because I want to hear everybody. I want to thank Phaedra for writing in and giving us her opinion. I want to thank everybody else for listening, especially our sponsors, Bertroshan Associates, Lubinas Law Firm, Polk County GOP, and Des Moines Anesthesia. Please patronize these fine folks to help us keep our show on the air and our studio open. That includes Brian Leach and Miss Giddies. We'll see everybody next week. I hope Lefty's feeling better. You've been listening to Doc and Lefty on webcast1live.com. See you next week.
Hi, I'm Representative Tom Shaw, and I love these guys, both of them. Love these guys. Get over here. Get over here. Love both of them.